All right, so let's get into whether or not the rally is over or not today. We'll dive into Bitcoin, take a look at Ethereum also, and maybe some of the contributing factors that could play into the market correction and how it's going to go forward, because there's going to be a lot happening for sure in the next few months. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. All right, so let's get into it today. Thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. If you're looking at going long-term on your crypto holdings, one way you can do it is through a crypto IRA. And of course, you can jump over to their website. Just go to itrustcapital.com. You will join a ton of people, 200,000 accounts now created with over 7 billion in transactions. Way it works is pretty simple. No fees monthly. You just pay fees on your transactions, and it's all within your IRA trading. So check it out. Use our link down below. You're going to get a $100 funding reward, and it does help the channel out. Let's go over to a couple of things that has been happening in general. If you look at the sentiment has been holding fairly strong on Bitcoin compared to the overall market. If you look at where Bitcoin is currently trading, this uptrend right now, this is the 4-hour chart, still holding at around 27.4, 27.5 on Bitcoin as it goes. And I think this is the question mark. Have we hit the max on where this market at this particular time is going to go? There's a couple things that play, I think, into this. Bitcoin due to new local low. There's a couple of things that people are looking at in terms of rejection levels. One thing that is outlined here in this article, if you didn't see this rejection coming, then you might want to evaluate your tools. Both TA and trend precognition indicated, I love that precog, a high probability of a rejection. Doesn't mean we won't see another attempt, because we probably will. And what we've seen, obviously, if you go back to the chart, was this rejection right here off of around the 28.3 mark. Now, I'd love to get you guys' feedback. If you're trading Bitcoin right now, are you dollar cost averaging in, or is this something where you're sitting on the sidelines and waiting for some adjustment for the market to maybe come down and maybe enter Bitcoin at a lower point? And if so, what's your lower point entry? I'd love to get that. Just drop some comments down below. I want to jump over to a couple of points here before I get into a breakdown of Raoul Pal giving us some macro alpha. I want to really go in this direction from the macro conditions of the market. Kobe EC kind of hitting on a few things, and then of course that is the big deal, which is the 33 billion in debt in one day yesterday, bringing the 2-day total to 308 billion right now. Since the U.S. debt crossed 33 trillion just about 15 days ago, the U.S. has added another 500 billion of debt. This is a problem because this is not going to slow down, and because there is essentially no debt ceiling. This is going to be a problem that's going to continue to cause devaluation of the U.S. dollar. And I think that's where the benefits are going to come in general, around the crypto market as a whole. I want to play a couple of clips for you guys of Raoul Pal. Actually, I want to hit on one other point. If the U.S., this is kind of interesting, if the U.S. debt borrowed over the last 2 weeks alone, it was split by every taxpayer, it would be $3,000 a person. That's kind of insane, considering there's 350 million people in the U.S. I want to go over to this clip right here of Raoul talking about where the macro pressures are going to come from. Listen in.
So for me, it all got priced in last year. Then this year, we've seen what I refer to as crypto spring, but we've also seen macro spring, which is the forward-looking indicators are now at the bottom and starting to rise quite sharply. So it suggests that we're transitioning through into better times. So where the economy is right now is probably at its slowest point. So a lot of people is like, well, where's my recession? It's most likely to happen in this quarter and maybe Q1. But we're already seeing the light at the end of the tunnel on the other side, which is why assets have been strong. And everyone's like, what? Why is the NASDAQ up 40%? And why is Bitcoin up 60%? It's because they're already pricing it.
He kind of hit on it, is that the market has had quite a bit of growth here over the past few months, and that has continued. If you look at the charts, I'm going to go over to just the NASDAQ and take a look at the S&P, and you can kind of see this drop. We're on the 4-hour right there to see this. Actually, if you guys don't know, we're doing TradFi sentiment right now, which has been pointing downward, but right there in a very short period of time, around 6% from Friday, September 1st into where we are right now in October. So that's a big move in the market in general. And I think this is the scenario that many people are looking at. Was this the top, or is this simply a normal market correction that we would typically see? And are we going to start to see this fourth quarter become the last hurrah, or that last little bit of, push out in the market to really kind of shake people loose and cause a little bit of a correction coming in the Q1 scenario. And this is something we've talked about. I still feel like that we are a little bit slower just because of what kind of pressures we're going to see from the Fed. When I say pressures, meaning higher for longer interest rates and probably stickier inflation. The inflation number is going to be very critical as we go into this. I want to go to another clip real quick and listen to what he had to say, which gets into around the halving and why it is as important as it is. Listen in.
And the macro cycle is this debt refi cycle every 3.5 years to 4 years that happens that exactly corresponds to the crypto cycle. I think it's coincidental. So I think macro is actually the dominant factor and the halving is a false narrative, but it doesn't matter because it still works, right? It's the same cycle. So you can measure it any way you want.
All right, so to me, that's intriguing, is that you now have traditional finance cycles potentially aligning here with what's happening in the Bitcoin halving. Now, is this as important as many people have looked at in the past cycles? I still believe it is not as important. It is a factor, yes. But I think what we're dealing with in the area of not only ETFs, the potential of regulation, all those kind of things that play into this, and the fact that we're on the backside of this bear market, timing is going to get really interesting now. At least when I've talked to a lot of people in our private member groups and in our weekend programs where we do these webinars, a lot of people are asking about dollar cost averaging. Is this the time to do it? And I look at it like this. I'm like, think about it, depending on the asset, because there's some assets, if you look at Avalanche or even Solana or Bitcoin in general, these may be some of the lower price points. Now, sure, they could go down, of course, just like any other market, but this is an interesting time just because of the fatigue in the market that has been at it so far. I want to go into this other clip right here on Raoul Pal. He's going into a price prediction, and it's interesting because there's a couple of price predictions here I'm going to show you coming from some pretty, legit people that I think hit on a couple of points. I have a couple of opinions on that, but listen in.
Prices rise from these kind of levels 5x plus, it goes beyond the all-time high and maybe doubles that or triples that. That's the kind of zone that normally happens. Does that happen this time? I have no idea. I don't see why anything's changed.
So he hits on the cycle model, and this again is something that has happened in crypto really ever since its beginning. But I still push back on that theory, mainly because I feel like this cycle model, though it has been aligned, sure, there will be a cycle there, but there are so many new contributing factors. And everyone will say, well, Paul, we kind of had this, in the last cycle. No, we never really did have true institutional. We never had what we saw and are seeing in the regulation front. And we definitely didn't have the SEC coming at the market like it is right now. So all those things play into this. Now, Arthur Hayes hit on a couple of predictions that I thought were interesting. I won't play the long video here, but he posted that he thinks around 1 million Bitcoin in the next few years is possible, given about a 15% probability. That's pretty low. And then he also would agree that he's expecting around 750K by 2026. And then looked at the short term around 70K. So we could reclaim that 69K all-time high very quickly. Could we do it in this next cycle? Do you think Bitcoin, because I think if we do see Bitcoin go to those kind of heights, we're going to see some massive runs in some of these blue chip tokens, especially in the altcoin space around layer one. So whether it's Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, some of those that you guys know we talk about quite a bit here on the show. But I'd love to get your feedback. Make sure and smash the like button if you like breakdowns like this. I'll show you a couple of other sentiment data points too, along with Solana and things of that nature. But I want to go over to this tweet, or actually this clip right here by Raoul. He gets into ETH and Solana and why these are both very important assets. Listen in.
So for me, it's still my core asset because there's so many applications built on top of it. And that's only growing over time. And then you've got the layer twos and that's scaling the whole space. So, I remain very optimistic. So ETH is still my main focus and my main position. And then I have some Bitcoin, obviously. And the other bigger position I've got is Solana, which is kind of under-owned. It got killed in the down cycle, down 97%, same as ETH did back in 2018. It then We saw economic activity picking up on chain. If Solana continues to pick up economic activity in the way that it's doing, it will outperform ETH.
Right, so you guys kind of heard that there. I think I would agree with Raoul on that point, and that is I think Solana is going to outperform Ethereum on this next run, mainly because of just what he's talking about, economic activity, on-chain transactions. If they get this deal done with Visa, meaning Solana, if they actually achieve the amount of load in the system from a transaction point, Solana is going to prove something very critical in the payments architecture. And that to me is the differentiator. And to me, those are some of the things. Now, granted, there'll be some NFT plays. We'll probably see some gaming activity, things of that nature that always kind of play into these markets as we get into bull runs. But I'm camping more into the Solana camp right now. I want to take a look quickly at Solana just to give you guys just a quick chart. You can kind of see this in the short. This is the 4 hour. Remember, we saw this bottom out right here around the 11th of September. Around $17. That was a short period of time. Remember when Solana hit that $8 range back in early January, and we were looking at really a potential run-up, which we did take on, but it's been able to kind of sit in this range bound between around $18, $19 and hovering around that $25 mark. And this is, to me, this is a safe place, at least for my investments. I look at Solana as a long-term, so it's not one that I trade and in and out of, but it is one that I'm very, very focused on in terms of, because this could go the exact opposite if they fail on some of these big initiatives, much like what they're trying to do with Ethereum or with Visa. All right, so I want to play another thing. This was another scenario that plays into this. Are Ether ETFs initiating institutional surge in crypto? I think yes. Short answer is we're going to see more interest in Ethereum, I think, in the ETF side, just because of the capacity of what Ethereum does versus what Bitcoin does. And also, it's very possible we could see other blue chips come into this once we are into a phase of actual approvals in this space. So lots happening here. Ethereum has ignited institutional interest amidst the backdrop of crypto bear market. Agreed. 6 ETH futures now instruments begun trading. And this is also, I think, what has caused Ethereum and also crypto in general to have a little bit of movement. All these are positive signals at the end of a bear market that we could be actually nearing. And this is one that we've looked at for quite some time overall. Last up here is just Eric Balchunas talking about Goldman Sachs, which is announcing their first ETF launch through their accelerator program, which is their white label biz, meaning you have the idea for an ETF, but you want to pay someone else to do it. This is something that I think might actually be a thing, because there's going to be enough buzz around this for years to come where we'll start to see ETFs that might utilize services like what Goldman Sachs is talking about here. So again, that's only bullish for Ethereum as a whole, but even more so, possibly bullish for crypto as a bigger picture because of the institutional alignment. And remember, the one thing you have to have in the markets that are critical is mass adoption. We did not have it on the last run. We had a lot of retail coming in, but we didn't have mass adoption. And you need regulation to do that. I think that's the thing that is going to make the difference. All that's happening literally right now. All right, so we're going to do these kind of breakdowns for you, these short updates, market, kind of good news type of scenarios every once in a while. Make sure and smash the like button. It's one of the things that help us get these videos out there. And if you're not in the diamond circle, make sure and get in right now. We'll leave a link down below. If you guys want to catch me on Twitter, it's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.